All right, guys, welcome to the Quest Culture Podcast, your place for all things sci-fi, fantasy, drama, action, pop culture. Today, we're going to be talking about something everybody's talking about, the brand new movie, Sinners, right? So,
Deep dive.
Deep dive. So to that end, because we are talking about a movie that is, that a lot of people have a lot of things to talk and say and comment about, we have someone who has been on our podcast before.
And I'm glad to be back.
And we're glad to have you back.
To have you.
Writer, director, self-described agitator.
Thank you.
Vagabond Beaumont.
I appreciate you remembering that.
Thank you for being here. And of course, we have your favorite podcasters from the Quest Culture Podcast. We have Darjak the Destroyer, Dana Deet here.
That's right.
What was that? What?
I would say, like, if she ever had like a gamer tag, I figured that's what I named her.
Darjak.
Darjak the Destroyer.
The Destroyer.
Right? I mean, come on.
Will it stick?
You definitely want it. I'm trying to make it stick. I'm the only one who uses it, so I don't think it's going to stick.
The only one.
I'm going to keep using it until it sticks.
I don't know. Darjak the Destroyer.
You like it?
Sticking to me.
All right, there you go.
Oh, there you go.
The Destroyer.
2 people.
There you go, 2 people.
2.5.
We also have, of course, we can't be here without the professor, my cousin, Sheldon Applewhite. How you doing,
Hey
Sheldon?
guys, good. I'm good.
Good. You guys excited about this one today?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Everybody's seen Sinners, correct?
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. So we can
You've seen it twice.
twice.
In IMAX.
Oh man.
Oh, I
haven't seen it
in IMAX.
So I'll say this as a director, as a fan. What'd you think about the film?
I thought it was an amazing film. I have my problems with it, but they're minor. There are people who have their criticisms of it. I'm a little wary about them only because a lot of people who have serious criticism with it are trying to be contrary to be contrary.
Why is that, do you think?
Because they're contrarians.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, people like to describe me as a contrarian. I'm not a contrarian, right? So I had a discussion with a friend of mine who called me because somebody was critiquing Sinners online about how it was supportive of Black capitalism. And she asked me how I felt about it. And I was like, no, I really don't see that.
They were critiquing it because of that?
They were critiquing it because they thought that it was promoting Black capitalism.
Interesting.
And I didn't.
And that's kind of ahistorical, though.
Well,
It's very ahistorical, actually.
I don't know about that. I just know for me, I was like, I don't think so. I think it's more communal.
That's right.
Than outright So I define capitalism because people like to conflate capitalism with a lot of other things. First of all, the original definition of capitalism is the circulation of capital, right? We no longer live in a world in which capital circulates, right? We live in a world in which billionaires sit on top of their gold, their pile of cash, and that money doesn't circulate. That capital doesn't circulate, right?
Yeah.
And so a true capitalist would want to see the money moving around, but we don't live in. I don't know what world we live in. I mean, I don't know if folks are familiar with Yanis Varoufakis, who used to be the finance minister in Greece when they were trying to create austerity. And he was like, no, we're not going to create austerity. He was going in the opposite direction, and they kicked him out for it. He has come up with a new term in the world in which we live in called
Feudalism?
techno-feudalism.
Yeah.
Right? And he has his argument. And there are people who argue against that. They have their arguments. And I think there's another professor from Jody Dean who has another term. I forget the term that she uses, but everybody's trying to figure out where we are today. And it's a difficult thing to figure out. I think the biggest problem that we have, and one of the problems that I think that Sinners kind of sort of in a way highlights, is that simply because capitalism was always on this trajectory, is that the biggest problem that the world has right now is that capitalism no longer needs democracy. It's just, my theory is that when you had communism kept capitalism in check. When the wall fell in 89, right? All the excuses that capitalism used to sort of say, well, we're not that way, right?
They've
Like, we don't
adopted-
throw people in jail who are against us or
They've adopted those
protest.
things
Now they're like, now that communism is gone, they had to create a sort of a difference, right, between communism and capitalism. And that difference was paper thin, right? It was like a facade. But now that the wall came down in 89, they no longer need to differentiate themselves from the tactics of communism.
And you think Sinners was commenting on that?
I think it does, because it shows how there's a failure in capitalism in and of itself, right? So in other words, these brothers come, they open up a spot, and the plan, when you watch it a second time, right, you pick up on a lot of things that there's so much in it. You know, I mean, for me, a great film is a film that you can keep coming back to and watching again and again and pulling something else out.
Yeah.
Right. So when they first buy the mill,
Yeah.
they notice that there's freshly clean blood
Yeah.
on the floor, and they're like,
Smells
"Y'all come
so
in here and
bad.
clean something up." You know what I mean? And they realize immediately, oh, something's not right. You know what I mean? And the moment that happens, they start making moves, right? Like homeboy starts clocking around him.
Yeah.
To like, let me let them know. So in capitalist terms, if you were buying something and you were creating a place and you were circulating capital, right? You would want somebody to start a place, because then that place needs what? It needs liquor. It needs people to cook. It needs people to do security. It needs people to, collect money at the door. It needs all of these things, and it creates something for the community, right?
Yep.
As a business. So the way that I define capitalism is if it makes a financial profit, is cool. War, fine. Slavery, good. Death, disease, illness.
All consequences.
It's all, no, not consequences. It's built into the system in and of itself. Like, it's okay to make money off of people dying. It's okay to, have a genocide in Gaza, right? And then immediately talk about building, a Riviera, on the beach.
I think white supremacy has always relied on capitalism, though.
Oh yeah,
I'm sorry. Capitalism has always relied on white supremacy as an apparatus, right?
Right.
And so even the idea that, this is like black capitalism or whatever, like your friend is saying or whatever, it's like, no, they had already planned to like take advantage of these black men, which is how white supremacy is always used in capitalism. So like the idea that it's communal and that what they're doing is for them and by them is outside of capitalism. Right. Capitalism was never intended for black folks, right?
But there's also, there's a lot of other things that for me don't scream capitalism, right? So there's this, he introduces the monopoly money, the plantation monopoly money, right? In the scene where the little girls come and they buy something, right? And the brother says, what is this? Yeah. You know what I mean? This ain't worth
real
nothing.
Money, right?
It ain't worth the paper it's printed on, right?
Yeah.
And then they have this, they're at a quandary where they're in the club and people are using their wooden nickels, so to speak, right? To pay for things. And there's a split where it's like, we need to let these folks come in and do this thing and pay us in the ways that they can and leave it alone. But then later on, so they have that scene. And then afterwards, the two brothers are like, I did the tally. This is the real cash. This is the Fugazi cash. We got 2 months before we out of money. And there's that. So even there is the critique about capitalism within it, right? And so it's not as if, I can't remember which one, I can't remember if it was Smoke or Stack, that's arguing for not taking the money. But the reason he's arguing is not because he doesn't want to, it's because they need to survive, right?
Yeah.
And this monopoly money is only good on the monopoly game.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? On the monopoly plantation.
Right.
So there's a lot going on in the film. And even with all its flaws and there's a lot there, and people are
before we get to why you think, because I'm curious what flaws you found in it. Not that they don't exist,
Right.
but I'm curious which ones you're forgetting. But before
Go
that,
ahead.
what did you guys think of the film?
Oh, I loved it. I gave it a 10, but nothing's perfect.
Yeah.
But
Well, if you feel like it's a 10, it's a 10.
yeah, I mean, yeah. It's a 10 to me. I haven't seen it again. I will see it again. I think what I love most about it was just how he combined like cultures, genres. Like some of the scenes looked like we were watching a live play, and I just loved how it was directed.
It's funny. My girlfriend said there's going to be a Sinners play.
It's going to be a what?
Oh my
Well,
God.
Oh, a
told you
Sinners
guys in
play?
the- I told you guys in the review, it reminded me of that scene
Yeah.
in Hamilton.
Yeah.
Like the flashback that they're having in Hamilton with the Shiloh sisters. That scene that they do with the dancing and the movement, they're spinning back throughout time and making a connection between like where they are now to different historical moments in time.
Ancestors.
Right.
People of African descent, but also people of Irish descent, people of Japanese background, that they're all connected. Right?
How'd you feel about
the
the
history of the world? I love the movie. Yeah.
What did you like about it?
I like the historical account of the movie and how accurate it was.
Yeah.
The visualization of the film, like when you see the cotton fields, when you drive by the chain gang, how that is historically accurate, right? Like when you go to where sharecroppers live, right? Which existed up until like the 60s.
Which is
In
crazy.
the 70s in the United States, right? Like people slept on the ground, 5, 7, 10 people to a house, right? Those houses that they had, in a reenactment or whatever, those were remnants of slavery. Those are the same slave quarters that they slept in when they were slaves.
Absolutely.
That just transferred when people were free and they were doing sharecropping. They lived in those homes. So like the stories that they were telling about the cousins and how are our other little cousins, right? Like that was a communal like style of living that was based on oppression, but it was also like based on heritage and history. So like I felt the movie was very thorough in the way that it looked at various parts of Black life, of the relationship between like whites as, Irish people who came to the United States as indentured servants, who were very close in proximity to Black people and who use Black people and their culture and their right to like survive until they were given or granted whiteness. So I just thought it was very, like, I love history, right? And I love when a story is told from a very historically accurate point of view. And I think that's what that's what the film was. Like, I'm not a big horror film, as you know,
right?
But I love that. Like it was on point.
He absolutely did his research for sure.
The other thing too is that you're talking about how sharecropping was not that long ago,
Right.
Buddy Guy, who ends
I
the
love
film,
that too.
right? But Buddy Guy,
Was
as a child, was a sharecropper.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's
We're not that
almost
far removed from it.
So
Our family,
it's within
Our grandparents were alive.
Grandparents were farmers.
My family's
Right.
absolutely.
Right.
so it's within a lifetime.
Exactly.
It's within a lifetime.
Yeah.
This is not, ancient history, right? This is within a lifetime, right? And so it's in a certain sense, getting Buddy Guy, I think that he knew that Buddy Guy was working on as a sharecropper or started as that way, and then, did the whole blues up the Delta to Chicago thing, mimicking his story, or it just happened to, he didn't know and it just happened to be the case.
Yeah.
The way he wrote this film and like based on his previous work, he does a very and I've never really checked into his biography, so I can't say I know a lot about Ryan Coogler as like his background or whatever, but he is very thorough in the work that he does on his films. Like, and I've
He went
seen
to
it
USC, right? Did he go to USC?
I think so, yeah.
right?
Yeah,
USC is the best, one of the best.
Yeah, but he's Oakland down.
And he's from Oakland.
Yeah,
so
he's
that
from
makes
Oakland.
sense because
Right.
there's a Black intellectual kind of
Absolutely.
tradition there.
Yeah, it is.
Like it's very, it was just smartly done. I mean, I saw Fruitvale Station,
Oh my God.
right? Which, by the way,
So good.
which I didn't know until yesterday, that Octavia Butler
Yes.
invested in him
In the film, yeah.
to make Fruitvale stuff.
I did not know
Because
that.
she's also from California.
That
right?
is a great-
So there's a
that's great
strong
to know.
Black intellectual tradition from
Yeah.
Oakland in particular. I lived there
It
for a
is.
few years of
Yeah.
summers. And so I never knew his background, but everything that he comes out with is very smart.
You don't know his background. You don't know his back. You didn't know he was from Oakland from the way he
No,
spoke.
I did not know. I should have, because there are certain words that he uses that's very Oakland down.
I love
Yes,
the fact
and
that
I
he
love
doesn't try to
Oakland.
hide.
Oh, I
from
love-
it.
I love it.
I love it
I love
that
it.
he,
Right.
no matter who he's talking to, he doesn't try to code
Right.
anything.
Which I love. Like, there's a coolness about him.
Oh,
that is legitimate and authentic, right? So I see that in his film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his what do you call it? Filmography, like
Yeah.
consistent, historically accurate, like doing the work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What was the
What about
what was
you,
the best?
Brendan?
Oh, what I did I
Yeah.
like it?
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought it was. I think I told you guys I thought it was one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life.
He gave it a 10, guys.
I gave it. I gave it. I gave it a 9.5.
Okay.
9.5.
Okay. He never gives films that high.
Never.
I know, but I walked out of there inspired. I walked out of there wanting just to be more in touch with my history, and I already lived like that. But it was just the value of seeing, and people poo-poo this, and they're going to keep poo-pooing this. The value of seeing not just your representation, but other people's
Done well.
representation done well and
Done well.
respect is invaluable.
Yeah.
It's invaluable. And I think that's why so many people are having so many visceral discussions
Yeah.
about this film, is because it was a vampire film, kinda.
Yeah,
but
kinda.
it's
You know
so
what?
it was
But it
so
was a
much
musical,
more than that.
it was his-
it was an exposure and an awakening for me.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that he said, because he just done Black Panther and studios are throwing all these options
Right.
at him. And he's like, I want to make this film and this
like-
is what it is, and take it or leave it.
Yeah.
And he said to himself, I just made Black Panther.
Yeah.
I'm on the map. I got to make my movie
Get it.
right now.
Right.
And he decided to do it.
It's a good movie.
Yes.
a very good movie.
It was
Listen.
brilliant. And he nailed it. He absolutely nailed it. And what I love about it is for other creators now, like we were talking about earlier, now the door's a little bit more open for a little bit. I don't know how
there's
long
also
it's
a
going to be.
standard, too.
But right now, Hollywood's like, oh, wait a minute.
There's
Wait
also
minute.
a standard too, though, right? Like, and that's the part. Like, we talk about Black excellence now. The Met Ball was like Monday or whatever, and like, there's like using Black excellence almost as a cliche, but he sets a standard, right? Like, you can't come. You could never come with me with this nonsense, with these bullshit movies, with like these one-dimensional Black characters, right? That are very like they're tropes, you know what I mean? Like, it's like the worst stereotypes about Black people, whatever, right? I don't accept the idea that Black people were monolithic. And I mean, there are stories and there's spaces for the Tyler Perrys of the world or whoever, right? But don't tell me you can't do and create something excellent for our audience and that people aren't going to receive it.
Well, the
'Cause that's
trope,
bullshit.
trope is
Nobody's-
always that nobody
nobody's
wants
ever
to
believed
see
that. Right.
Black movies,
Right.
movies with people
So now
of color.
you got to do better.
It's clearly not true.
You got to do better funders, and do better creators.
Yeah.
Like the market set.
But that's why like Variety and the New York Times were saying what they're saying about it. Oh, it made $45 million, in the first weekend, which is great, but it didn't make the budget.
But we don't.
They didn't say that about
They're not
Once
like
Upon a
that.
Time in Hollywood
It's-
with
yeah,
with
just so crazy.
Tarantino.
Making a comparison.
Tarantino's
Yeah.
film had the same budget,
Right.
made $30 million, but I didn't see any articles talking about how
I know.
Whoa, it made $30 million
the first weekend.
in the first weekend. But hold on a second.
Yeah.
It was in, I think, 300 more theaters.
Yes,
the difference,
That
though.
other
Yeah.
part too.
That's the
that other
difference.
part too.
Yeah.
So it
That's
made
the big difference
it
that
made
we
less. It made less money and it was in more theaters.
More
But
theaters,
still,
yeah.
you didn't see any articles about how it didn't quite meet the budget and how
You had one of the top superhero movies, right? That made you tons of money, and you couldn't put it in distributed all throughout the country and throughout the world. That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
That the same kind of attention is not given, and you have been making money hand over fist off of Black artists, Black and brown artists, right? Now you're gonna have to put your money where your mouth is, right? Because he set the trend now. Like, these are the kind of contracts we want, right? Put some respect on my check. 25 years after it's over, I own this.
But the thing about it is that those contracts already existed, right? Like there's other directors who had those.
There have been deals that have been done like this before. This is not new. It is difficult.
Right.
And it only happens when Hollywood is got a busted knee.
Well, you know Spike, and you worked with Spike. Did Spike get a chance, or did he ask for a deal like this?
No.
Okay.
But it's a weird, again, so here's the thing. You look at Francis Ford Coppola. Francis Ford Coppola, I think he had a shingle, I forget which studio he had it with, but the deal that he had was if the films don't do well, this was a punishment, okay? This was a punishment for Coppola. If the films that you make don't do well at the end of the contract, you got to buy them back.
He financed that last movie, right? What was it?
Megalopolis. But what I'm saying to you is that's why Apocalypse Now is his. Cotton Club is his.
Oh, which people, they panned Cotton Club, and it was such a great movie.
But the problem too was that he had difficulty with the studio with Cotton Club.
Yes.
He wanted to focus much more. The film was, I think, 2 hours, supposed to be 2 hours and 45 minutes. They cut out a half an hour out of the Black story that he wanted to focus more on.
Right.
You know, I mean, I quote that movie all the time.
That was a cultural difference, right? Yeah.
That I quote, you know.
Which he wouldn't have done had it not been a Black movie.
Right.
Like they would have given him carte blanche if it had not been a Black movie.
Right. If he had wanted to extend the Richard Gere part, they would have let him slide.
Yes.
So with his deal, he had to buy back the films. In the long run, he made more money. He made more money. You know, every time Apocalypse Now comes on the TV, ka-ching, it was just on Netflix, ka-ching.
I saw it in IMAX,
you know what I mean?
A few years ago.
Cotton Club, he recut Cotton Club, ka-ching, you know, put it in a theater. I didn't get a chance to see it. It was only in theater for like maybe 2 days or something like that, unfortunately. But I would have loved to have seen it. I didn't get a chance to see it. But these deals do happen. The problem is that my argument has always been, right? And I just came back from Berlin and the UK where I was trying to sell some of my own films, right? And my attitude was selling things to these vampires to keep to keep within the
who are the vampires?
You know, the theme is that I don't need you. You need me. Okay.
Why do they need you? Just explain why.
I'll tell you why. Because they can't make films. I make the films. Okay. One of the biggest things that I learned in Berlin, going around and talking to business people, is that business people work off of data. Data, the set of data that they work off is from the past. We live in the present, right? The present is, of course, not the past. And artists live in the future. Artists know where it is that we're going, right? And then they have to express that. So the problem is that the artist is always at odds with the business person because they're like, well, can you make it like this because this made money? And the artist is going, that's not where we are now. We're in a different place and we're headed someplace else. And in 2 years, where we're going to be is X. Right?
I think that's with all data versus like art or creative processes, right? Like they're
and so there, there's nothing more frightening to a businessman than not knowing what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then when you take a risk, the only way to do anything is to risk. You have to risk something, right? Yeah. And you know, part of the reason that Hollywood was so upset, all these executives in the New York Times talking shit about Ryan Coogler's deal, is that my feeling is that every filmmaker should ask this. And one of the critiques that I have around Ryan Coogler himself is that he said, I would never ask for this deal ever again. And I'm like, not me, bro.
He said that?
He said that. Me? Well, I'd be kicking in the door going, listen, I photocopied my last deal. All you got to do is fill in the title and sign at the bottom line, and we good. We can do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are.
Why did he say that?
I guess it depends on the type of films that he's trying to make, right?
I don't care what film you're making. I think, right? They don't have the power. Okay? They don't have the power. They think they have the power. I tell this to people all the time. Quick question, right? The reason that these business people give you the hard way to go to get the money is because nobody remembers them. Why? Because nobody should remember you. Why? Because you didn't risk anything.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. You go down the street, you ask somebody, who directed The Godfather? Francis Ford Coppola. Who wrote it? Mario Puzo. Who was in it? Who owns the studio? Maybe somebody says Paramount. Who's the head of studio? Nobody
knows.
Now, the head of studio wrote the check. Nobody cares about it. Once they write that check, it's a wrap. Okay. And if the movie hits, nobody cares who wrote the check.
I do have a kind of a little bit of a pushback. Not really a pushback, but I want to hear what your thoughts about it. So, for example, you're saying like the creator has the power, right? Well, let's look at, for example, the creator of like X-Men 97, right? Like he was pushed out effectively by a big studio.
Right, but that's not the power I'm talking about. I'm talking about the power to connect with an audience. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about the power to connect with the human condition.
Same thing though with X-Men 97.
Right, but that's his power. The power that they try to manipulate is one where they're talking about business arrangements. They're talking about legality. They're not talking about justice. You know, I went a few years ago, I went through a problem and I had to stop and ask the judge. I said, I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm gonna lose my mind. Okay, because we came here for justice. And she said, that's your problem. Right. She said, this is not a justice system.
This is a legality.
This is a legal system.
Yeah, right.
And I said to her, I have all the respect. And from that day forward, I never want to be in a courtroom ever again in my entire life.
That's what you're saying.
Next time I'm in a courtroom, it's with a 5-gallon gatheline can and a match. Okay?
But that's what you're saying with the X-Men 97 creator.
The creator,
it's a matter of legality rather than,
It's not his power. Their power is in connecting with an audience. Yeah. Right? This was my pitch. I was trying to do I'm still trying to do a documentary on Abiodun Oyewole of The Last Poets, right? Mm-hmm. My pitch to everybody was, I need $500,000. I said to them, listen, let's put $500,000 on this table and let's burn it. It can be replaced. We can replace $500,000. It may be difficult for others, very easy for most, right? For others, right? What we can't do is we can't replace Abiodun Oyewole. What you have is $500,000, which is replaceable. What I have is not replaceable. So who has the leverage here? And that's how I go into my situations all the time. I'm the one with the leverage. I'm the one that connects with the audience. I'm the one that's, as true artists, right, will stand and look at the world and go, wait a second, we're asking the wrong questions. We're looking at the wrong things. Let's highlight this, right? And when things like that come along, right, and they hit on the zeitgeist in the way that Sinners has, in the way that Oppenheimer did, even in a way in film that I don't like, Barbie did. Right? Mm-hmm. They engender this mass conversation, right? Where everybody's got to be talking about it, right? Because everybody has to understand, what are we talking about? So that only comes from artists. Business people can't do that. They don't know. They know numbers.
I have a technical question for you. Talk to the audience a little bit about that first scene. The scene where Smoke and Stack were passing the cigarette.
I don't even know how they did it. To tell you the truth, I haven't looked into it.
You mean that's twins? Like,
right. Yeah. Because supposedly, so there's different ways of doing it. There's different tricks, right? So the way that you do it, so I know for a fact that what they did was they used what they call a motion control techno crane. Yeah. Right? So the crane, you design the crane to make a certain move. Okay? It comes out, it turns, it lifts, and it can do that exactly every single time.
Mm-hmm. With a green screen behind it.
No, just as a techno crane, just as the crane itself. So you can program the crane and it moves exactly the way you want it to move, right? Mm-hmm. So in other words, you do that, and then what you can do is what they do is matte half of the frame, mm-hmm. right? So if your camera's moving exactly the same way every single take, right? You can shoot this half of the frame and have Michael B. Jordan here. You can have Smoke here and Stack there. Okay. You can shoot Smoke, and then you can do the whole thing all over again with Stack. Yeah. Now that's one way of doing it. Right. Right? They had some sort of other techniques. Yeah. And supposedly what I did read was that take took 17
takes.
17?
Yeah. What I appreciate about what Michael B. Jordan is doing is there's a deliberateness in the handing of this cigarette, right? Mm-hmm. Between the two of them.
Mm-hmm. Like the sharing of it.
Right. That is that shows a tenderness,
It's
a love,
intimate.
a care, it's intimacy, right?
They feel like brothers.
Right.
They feel like brothers when they pass.
you couldn't-
I felt that.
But as a filmmaker, I know that they're shot this twice, right?
Right.
So I'm thinking to myself, he holds a cigarette out and he's holding it out for a moment and taking a beat and holding it there. And then his twin is reaching out after that beat
Instinctively, yeah.
and taking it, right? And then handing it back and waiting a beat. And then taking it after a beat. You see what I'm saying? And so what I'm looking at, I'm going, I wonder if that was easier to do timing wise.
It's a timing thing.
You see what
yeah.
for on a technical aspect,
Yeah.
right? But what Michael B. Jordan is doing is going, let me use that limitation
The beat.
to my advantage,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
To say something
Yeah.
about these two characters.
Yeah.
Yes.
And to me, that's the beauty that I love. It's like, let me not try to. So for the people who are like me, who know, well, there's something technically going on here, and they're taking their time handing this back, and you would sit there,
It's like,
you might say, well, the reason they're taking their time is because technically
Right.
they've got to get this right. What he does is he goes, yeah, that's true, but look at it on this whole other level where I'm showing you care, love,
Yeah.
intimacy.
passing it when
Passing
you're
it
ready.
back. Right.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And passing
I just felt like
Yeah.
yes. I just felt like it was genius for obviously for technical reasons. But I remember first seeing speaking of wardrobe, seeing Smoke with the blue hat,
Right.
I'm Smoke with the red, Smoke with the blue, and Stack with the red hat. And I thought to myself, man, that's kind of obvious that they kind of delineate them like that. But it's so pivotal because you leave that scene thinking there's two of them, and throughout the rest
my
of the
God.
scene,
Yeah.
throughout the rest of the movie, you feel like there are two
moves like
people.
Like
it's
there's
two
two.
people.
Right.
I never
Yeah.
even think
Yeah.
about. I've watched twin shows before.
Yes.
There's- I've watched all my children.
Wait,
with-
I've known people,
I've
heard people say they thought they found another actor who looked like Michael B. Jordan.
No,
Not playing.
I mean,
It was so seamless that you
It
did not
really was
feel.
seamless.
At no moment I was like, "Oh, Michael B. Jordan's playing these two roles good." Like I thought of them as two separate characters, and I knew, like, I don't know what that was. Like I knew it. I knew it was him.
That's
playing
the
both
brilliance.
roles.
That's the
but
brilliance of
in
what
my
Kubrick
mind.
did.
Yeah.
It was cognitive dissonance.
But then on top of that, he shoots in film.
Yes,
This is a difficult thing to do in film.
explain that.
Well, if you do it digitally, right? You can. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can shoot it in film. It's going to get transferred digitally. It's going to get edited digitally and all that. But what I'm getting at though is that when you shoot in film, you're somewhat locked in. I mean, like what you see is what you get.
yeah,
Right.
You can play with things digitally.
and clean it
You're
up.
limited as to what you can.
Yeah. When you shoot it, it's a wrap.
Yeah.
Okay. And to be shooting in IMAX and with these cameras, they're huge cameras. I mean, the film is like this.
Yeah.
It's not a joke.
Yeah.
Right? And they make a lot of noise.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
So what is the technical benefit?
The technical benefit of shooting film, it feels real.
Real.
So the difference
Because of the flaws.
right, because of those flaws.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know if this is true. And so like my friend Joe was off camera. We had this discussion. He doesn't think it's true. But somebody said this one thing. I read this one thing. Again, I don't know if it's true. Film, when you watch something at 24 frames, something that's shot at 24 frames and something that is projected at 24 frames, it activates the alpha waves in your brain. Okay?
He's laughing off.
He's laughing off camera, I know, right now. I'm just saying, I would love for this to be true. I don't know if it is.
I'm gonna look it up and be like, is that true?
Let me just, I just love it so much, I'm gonna spread the bullshit, right?
Please get back to us if this is true or not.
And so supposedly, according to this person, if you shoot something in video, right, it activates beta waves, which are calming, right? So film
Passive?
engages you. Passive, yes. The beta waves are passive.
Yes.
Alpha waves are active, right? Engaging, right? I don't know if that's true, but I know that when I see things in film, even so, like I went with my cinematographer, Jeff, right? Shout out to Jeff, AKA
Jeff AK.
right? So Jeff and I were like, you noticed that there was some dark spots where they had to push the film, right? So pushing the film means that you shoot something that's dark. And this is a thing about film. It happens in digital too. But when you shoot in film, if it's too dark in here, what we do is we push a stop. So stops are, if you set your phone to manual, you have 2.8, which is, wide open. You have 5, it gets smaller. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, right? You get to 11 or 16, it's really tiny. That's when you're shooting outside and bright. When you're shooting something dark, you're wide open.
You widen the aperture.
You need to be wide open on the aperture
more light.
to let more light come in, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But what happens is sometimes you shoot something and you still don't have enough. So you take the film and you develop it in such a way that you push it one stop. So in other words, this was your technical limitation. And then in the chemical process, we open it up one more stop, or maybe a stop and a half.
And you can see that.
Because what happens is it gets grainy.
Oh, and so you noticed that.
Oh, you can notice it. You go and you see the film a second time. You look at the very dark shots, you'll see they're grainier than the other things. So what happens is, film, the difference between film and digital is that film has silver halide, right?
Yeah.
It has these little pieces of silver that are light sensitive on plastic, on film, right? And the light hits it, but that is constantly moving. Those little pieces of they're constantly moving. They're never in the same place. It's not like in digital. You have pixels. Those pixels are locked in, okay? And one of the problems that we had with video when we were first trying to get video to look like film was that it didn't have any life. Everything was locked in.
Oh, yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas film, it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
Like and I mean, so there are 24 frames per film, right? Per 1 second of film. Every single frame, the silver halide particles are in a different place, right? And that's what gives film that sort of like life,
organic
right?
feel.
Yeah, that organic sort of feel to it, right? So to do that, and then to go, of course, everything else, you still have your digital stuff afterwards. It gets digitized after the fact. But to come there and to get that from the jump is a huge risk.
Yeah. So circle back in terms of like centers. Like what did you notice in the shooting of it? Like that was very like film in comparison to
that,
like using digital.
But the funny thing is that so I saw it. The problem is I saw it digitally.
Okay.
I saw it in digital IMAX. You can't get a 70 millimeter ticket. You can't see the film in 70 millimeter IMAX. It's only in 8 theaters in the whole country.
Okay.
Right?
Wow. Okay.
And when they I think was it next week, they're re-releasing it in those 8 theaters, right?
Yep.
It took about 3/4 of a day for every one of those shows to be sold out in New York City. Every show.
It's crazy.
Every single show.
Oh, so that's like a very short time, you're saying.
3/4 of a day. I'm talking about, it's I think from May 15th to May 21st. I think it was like 6 days.
They're all sold out.
Gone.
Yeah. Like in a quarter of the day.
Gone.
Okay, gotcha.
Gone. Okay? Right. We're not talking about 70. We're not talking about IMAX. We're talking about 70 millimeter IMAX.
Right. So that's people who are really like film
those are
goers who
cinephiles.
love, right.
Here's just to back up, because I wanna take a shot at Ted Sarandos. Like 4 days before Ted Sarandos, 4 days before Sinners opened, about 4 or 5 days, he said nobody wants to go to the movies. Movies are dead. Theatrical.
Yeah.
You remember that, right?
Yeah.
And then 4 days later, Sinners just crushed it. Everybody's in the movie.
Yeah.
Everybody's in the movies.
What was your favorite scene in that movie?
Delroy Lindo's scene.
Which one?
Everybody loved
the chain gang scene.
Yeah.
What about you, Shel?
Ooh. Come back. I'll circle back.
D.
Oh, I love the scene with the music genres.
Outside.
That was fantastic.
My mouth fell open and I felt like a outer body almost. It was so moving to me. And it just made, I always knew this, but it's like I hope the world understands now how much we have contributed to
I'm sorry.
this entire world as far as influence with music.
Yeah.
What we've created.
That's a difficult, I think it was a difficult thing to pull off musically.
God,
never mind,
it is.
never mind the shooting wise, musically. Because you could easily backslide into wiki
Right. Or some
really easily.
That was a very brave choice.
or some cliche kind of Negro spiritual kind of bullshit or whatever.
But even all of that is still very important.
It is.
Right, but I'm saying to you, like sonically, you could be pandering.
You didn't you didn't lay into it too much.
Right.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
So for me, it was the dance scene. Like the dance scene was almost like the dance scene in the juke joint.
Yeah.
It was like a crescendo to like what was getting ready to happen, right? Like shit was getting ready to hit the fan. And they are like almost like, they're conjuring, they're dancing, they're celebrating. The shit is getting ready to go down. He gets bitten. She's like, we gonna kill all y'all of that. It's the crescendo of like the height of the night. You know what I mean?
Not only that, but the roof.
Yes.
Yeah.
The roof.
With the roof.
Yes.
The roof is on fire.
Yes,
The roof is on
that
fire.
moment, and you can feel it. You've been in those spaces before.
Yes.
Right.
Everything
and
is.
I love that. What did they say?
It was church.
It was
church.
And
and the club. At 5 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Well,
right?
Angelo Moore from Fishbone said, he said to him, some of your music sounds like punk rock and some of it sounds like gospel. And he was the one, I never forget this. He said, well, Saturday night ain't really that far away from Sunday morning.
Well, that's the point that I was trying to.
Linkage is like.
That's the point that I was making. That church and juke joint is basically the same thing.
Right.
That's right. That's why everybody's sinners.
Everybody's sinners.
Right.
Exactly. So that's really the.
What you going for Saturday night is the same thing people looking for at church on Sundays.
Right.
It just looks different.
Yes. Yeah.
What about you?
For me, it was that scene. That
right?
Because I thought it was filmed wonderfully, but to your point, what got me was just sonically how they put those songs together. And not that they were just together, but how they layered them.
Right.
When they layered
Ludwig.
them. I was like, and it just became a completely different song.
Yeah.
Right. But it was comprised of all of these other elements. And for me, it was just like, I saw that and I saw the joy on what's his name? Revnick. I saw the joy on his face. And I was like, this is what he wanted the whole time.
Yeah.
This is what he wanted the whole time. He wanted to be a part of that whole thing. And the joy you saw on his face when he was there, because the camera kind of kept going to him, right? Yeah, you see everybody, even Cornbread dancing around, but it kept coming to him. And he was in the middle, and then they surrounded him, and he was doing the whole thing. And I was like, this is what he wanted the whole time, but he had to turn everybody to get it, right? So I felt like it was really really well done, and I was super impressed by that. And when I go see it again, I'm going to be waiting for that scene. I'm going to be waiting for it, and I'm going to be ready for it, because I wasn't ready the first time. I'm going to be ready for it this time.
Okay.
I still think we have a little bit of disagreement. Like he wanted to rejoice in it, and I think he wanted to suck that away from. He wanted to take this living part of the living and make it his own. I don't know if that's a celebration or if that's just like the name.
Well, I think I think the thing about vampires, right?
Right.
And we all know who vampires.
Like,
we've all lived with vampires. Right.
Yes,
I mean,
right.
Some of them are named Elon Musk.
Yes.
Some of them are named Jeff
Yes.
Bezos.
Yes.
Some of them are named Donald Trump.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Cameron.
These are our vampires,
Yes.
right? And so those people, like, to me, they have a hole.
They feed off of our light.
Right. They have a hole. Even these studio heads, right? They have a hole that they cannot fill, right? And they think they can fill it with whatever you've got, right? My father said to me, I didn't get this movie, because like he's watching it from a historical perspective. My father's 83 years old, right? And he's like, I didn't get it. And I said to him, it's about art and vampires. I said, artists build something. We build something for the good of a communal experience, to recognize the human condition, right? And to get others to recognize their part in that human condition. And we attract people who want to capitalize on it. And what do we have to do as artists? we stand by the door and go, what do you
and creator.
What do you do? Right? Well, I want to come in. I heard you got what's going on. And the moment we let them in, the moment we allow them in, they suck us dry.
Right. It's creators. So, right. You keep saying artists is creators because you find it in almost every.
I don't like the term creators. I like artists.
Right. Okay. But in music, you see it in the academic, like people who are bloodsuckers. Right. They suck.
Oh yeah.
They
I see what you're saying. If you're talking about academics, it's the same thing.
But I'm saying it's the same kind of process.
No, you're right. You're right.
People are creative who have their own ideas, and people who don't have any, and try to suck them out of you like blood.
Right. Yeah. No, it's and which is the reason why the deal he made was so important. Owning the film back, right?
Yes.
And I the funny thing too is that it's almost like, isn't this a great script? And people are reading, oh my God, this is a great script. And it's like, okay, so you understand why it is you can't fucking have this, right? You get why I want this shit back.
That part
right?
is like, no. They're like, no.
And they're like
wait, are we?
But then Warner Brothers, it just hit 100 years. It may not be around. It literally may not be around.
I mean, with this embargo.
Warner Brothers, right? These legacy studios,
right?
Yes, absolutely.
But I mean Warner Brothers specifically.
Yeah,
they're in a really bad spot. So that's again, you have to hit them in that place. I've said this time and time again. I remember when I was at a panel for the New York International Latino Film Festival, and there was an issue with people trying to getting people to make more Latino films, and they didn't know how to do it. And I was like, the way you do it is to challenge Hollywood. If you challenge Hollywood, Hollywood cannot compete at all. It needs hegemony. It needs to control everything. And I said, so, and I can give you examples. So you had Oscar Michaud, right? They had to destroy Oscar Michaud because he was a parallel thing. Nothing can be parallel to Hollywood. The moment that something starts to gain traction alongside Hollywood and take money from their pocket, it's a problem.
It's with all these things, right? Even with them, like with airlines that start like, all black folk or all Latino folk, right? It's like, oh no, we can't let this happen or occur. Like when Henry Ford was going, there was a whole, distributor that they felt
that's right
by.
Oh
right?
yes.
Yeah. So I think you're making an important point.
And so you look at the blaxploitation era, right? Nobody was making black films until Sweet Sweet Black's Badass Song comes along, right? And then all of a sudden Hollywood goes, oh shit, niggas go to the movies.
And the intention he made that film was not what blaxploitation.
No,
right?
That was not his intention. Here's the funny part: if you watch Sweet Sweet Badass Song, it's an art film.
Yes,
it's an art film. It's a revolutionary art film, not just in its form and its content, but also in its politics. Okay,
everything else became a derivative of
exactly.
That. Yes,
right. And so what happens? You have to absorb it, right? So they start making black films. The same thing happened in the 90s. When Hollywood was falling apart, they came to Sundance, right? And they picked up Tarantino, right? To revive them, right? Because they're vampires, right? And every once in a while, they need to feed on the next generation's blood.
Yeah.
On the next thing's blood.
So I thought you were going to talk about all those like Menace to Society, Boys to the Hood, to the Hood, then all of the derivatives that come from it. You
Exactly.
Know what I mean?
But that's part, that was sort of like exactly. That was a sort of that was like another part of that whole 90s Sundance sort of kind of a thing where it was like these smaller independent films that were being made, and then they get subsumed, right? Into the larger system. Right.
I love that you use the word hegemony. It's a concept I'm teaching my class right now.
Well, I mean, Gramsci. You got to do is read Gramsci. You know what I mean?
Antonio Gramsci. People were paying attention in class.
You think it'll win at least one Oscar?
I don't have faith. I don't care about the Oscars. People put too much into them. It's like when you look back on the films that won Best Picture, right? And you look at the films that they were competing against.
Well, let me rephrase it. Do you think it should?
It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't. It's Best Picture for the people.
Do you think it matters to him?
Maybe. It probably does.
Yeah.
It probably does.
I think it does. But
I think it.
I mean, look at Moonlight winning, right? Like,
I just think it would do. I think it does. I think it matters because when this stuff, because I've still talked to people who still have no intention of seeing this movie, right?
Right.
And a lot of it, from what I'm hearing, some of it we talked about because some of it are just things, but some of it is because they're just not interested in seeing a black movie. But this is not just what this is black people saying.
No,
this too.
anti-black.
Right.
But let me give you an example about Best Picture. Okay. In 1990, the film that won Best Picture
290
was Driving Miss Daisy.
Oh, dear.
Okay.
God.
The film that was not nominated was Do the Right Thing. Who watches Do the Right Thing and who watches Driving Miss Daisy?
I never saw Driving Miss Daisy.
I haven't seen it either.
Ever.
So what I'm saying to you is that
Daisy was good, but
it can have some relevance, right? Every once in a while it strikes and it has relevance, and every once in a while it doesn't, right? I have this thing where I think that Best Picture is a reflection of the political situation that we find ourselves in. So like when Obama won the presidency in 2008, I told everybody that Slumdog Millionaire was going to win Best Picture. And they were like, ouch. Wow. And I said, because Slumdog Millionaire is the story of Obama. And they were like, what do you mean it's the story of Obama? I'm like, it's some kid who nobody thought would ever become anything and wasn't supposed to amount to anything who becomes the president, right? I mean, it's the same story, right? I feel like, in a certain sense, I feel Anora is a reflection of that too, because I can't stand that movie. I thought it was horrible.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about that another episode.
Yes.
Anora.
But I feel like Anora is a reflection of where we are today in terms of how to deal with Trump.
And how is that? I mean, I saw Nora.
And in that, she starts off in this horrifying situation.
Yes.
She's suckered by this big money person, right? This wealthy person. That wealthy person uses them, kicks them to the curb.
Hold on, spoiler alert, guys. Don't, if you want to watch the movie.
No, we're going to spoil it. We're going to spoil it.
Okay.
We're going to spoil it, all right? It came expired already, all right?
Yeah. I mean, it's on Disney Plus, for God's sake. Like, go ahead.
But at the end, the one brother who falls in love with her, who really wants to take care of her, the one who is horizontal to her, right? The one who's not the big money, the horizontal. She rejects him.
Did she reject him at the end?
She rejected him. Yeah.
We don't know what
but then she walks out and she's like, nah, I can't do this. You know what I mean? And so what happens to me in that film is that there's no character arc. She starts off stupid and ends up stupid.
I mean, I saw that as like this sort of like
flat lines.
This sort of like ethnic click, what do you call it? An ethnic sort of what do you call it? Like a
milieu?
Yeah, like an ethnic milieu that they were celebrating, almost like.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like,
you know what I mean?
But there was no culture to that ethnic milieu. It was just.
I kind of know that culture growing up in Brooklyn. I know that culture, and I don't know it personally, but I know that culture exists, and so I think they were trying to get a slice of that.
Right, but
it doesn't make for a best picture.
No,
but I
look at what should have won. What should have won? Conclave,
Brutalist,
or the Brutalist, the Brutalist or Conclave. One of those two. Oh, those films are a reflection of. Are a better reflection about where we need to go as opposed to where we are.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know?
Who do you think was the best performance in that movie, in Sinners?
Oh, man. There's a lot of good performances. I mean, there's really good.
Who do you think gives the best performance of all those great performances? I think I know you're going to say. That's why I'm asking.
I think you already mentioned him.
But you know what? That you got it. Delroy is a monster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to mention it. I knew you were going to say
He's a monster.
him. Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. But again, it's like anytime Delroy's in a film, like you're just going to go.
Since Kirkland.
Right.
Come on.
Right?
Yeah.
But then you look at the young brother who he's not an actor.
He's not.
He's not.
He's not an actor.
That was his introduction.
He's a musician.
That was his introduction.
Yeah.
He killed it.
Killed it.
He did a great job.
And Michael B. Jordan was no. Let me tell you something.
People are sleeping on that dude.
Listen to me.
Michael B. Jordan.
I've been like this with him the whole time.
Me too.
I think people like get caught in his looks and his physique.
Yeah,
they sleep on his acting.
I don't even care about his looks. He's a good-looking guy, but he got me with Creed. I love him in Creed.
He's been doing it for a long time. He was in The Wire as a kid. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's been working his craft for a very long time.
I just felt like he was chewing a lot of scenery most of the time.
You thought
he was just chewing a lot of scenery.
He's Ryan Coogler's. He's Ryan Coogler's muse. That's his muse.
With this
He's
film,
like Denzel and Spike. And,
that's his muse.
Leo and
But here, this film is like
no.
Like I'm giving.
There's no doubt about it. He killed.
So what would you give it out of 10?
8.5.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't take the lowest spot. Yes.
Yeah.
What'd you give it?
9.
So let me ask you a question. So, and I did ask these guys already, is there a prequel of this movie that you would be interested in?
A prequel?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you watch it the second time, right? So they're selling Irish beer, Italian wine, right?
So you want the Chicago?
What
you
did
want
I
the
say?
you want the
Right.
prequel?
But then somebody speaks to them. I can't remember who it was, but they go, "What y'all gonna do when they find out that y'all started this war in
Exactly.
Chicago?"
Yeah.
It was it was his wife. It was
Right.
it was Smoke's wife.
Right.
But how do you extend the story about the vampires in Chicago? See, that's why I thought it should go back.
I don't need no vampires in Chicago.
Y'all like, you don't need the vampires.
No.
Just
We
tell
want
us
to know how they. We want to know the gangster
Look,
stuff.
here's
We
the
want to know who they. We want to see the story of them stealing from the Italians and from the.
Yeah,
I want to see that.
My
Yeah.
father didn't know nothing about no vampires.
Yeah.
I said to him, "Let's go." And my father loves going to the movies.
Yeah, go ahead.
And so he was like, "I didn't know this was a vampire movie. He's not a vampire. He's not a horror man.
horror.
Westerns, dramas. That's TCM. You know what I'm saying?
I love
like
that
my
you
dad.
took your
Sounds
dad.
like my
I
dad,
love
yeah.
that you took your dad to the
dad
film.
too.
To the
I take my dad to the movies all the
love
time.
that.
All the time.
If I were going
No?
to say, because we're running out of time, again, thank you for doing this. We're gonna have to do another one because we didn't even. I don't think we even scratched the surface of all the questions we want.
No,
especially about this film. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're wrapping up.
Like,
I didn't know.
15 minutes ago.
The question that I want to ask is, or actually to the question that was asked to you, there is a prequel I want to see. I want to see I want to see what happened on that boat. Remember, because in that newspaper, they showed the boat that landed, or that was abandoned, and I want to know about the journey of that. What happened on that boat? And why Revenant? Why he was being chased by the Choctaws?
Exactly.
I want to know what because I want to know. I want to know why they figured him out. How they figured him out.
You brought up the Choctaws.
Yeah.
And I tell you this: instead of having the sun killing all the vampires, it would have been better. A beautiful bookend had the Choctaw come back and said, "We know that you motherfuckers is gonna be here, and we came to save your ass."
That would have been.
Yeah, they should have.
That would have been amazing.
That would have been.
Because that
would have been 9.5.
That would
That
have
would've been 9.5.
Yeah.
That would have been 9.5, right? That'd have been like,
Yeah. No, I mean, you just see.
If the Choctaw showed up in the middle,
right
Like,
in the middle of all
when
that?
they were like, when homeboy was in the water, like, yo, about to catch it.
It would also show like sort of like this sort of coalition
Solidarity,
between
right.
Black and Native Americans, which exists,
which is existing.
Right, right.
Should have been great.
Guys, we got to do this again. We got to do this again. Vagabond, we got to thank you so much for coming on because it's so much fun. We never have enough time to do this. What do you got coming up? Let people know where they can find you.
You can catch me on Instagram at VGBND, so it's Vagabond without the vowels, or Audiovisual Terrorism on Instagram, all one word. I'm working on a film that's Sinner's Tangent that I've been working on for 6 years called Spirits of Coney Island.
Yes.
And so I'm also finishing up a film called Legally Drugged. That's literally, it just finished exporting. I'll just upload it.
Great.
If all goes well, we'll maybe get into the Rain Dance Film Festival in London in June.
Amazing.
And have our premiere there.
Wow.
So, and then, I got to get back to shooting, but my personal life is a nightmare. So I gotta get that settled.
Well, we look forward to.
I don't have a
what you're
choice.
doing, and please let us know when it comes out so we can see it.
No, for
all
sure.
that stuff because we want to see it.
You know.
Let people know where to find you guys.
Dana Deed on Instagram.
And Sheldon Applewhite on IG and Dr. S. Applewhite on Blue Sky.
And you?
And Brendan Hamilton, everywhere on social media, Be Music Maker. If you guys have any questions for Vagabond,
Yes.
about the film, about
Directing.
in general, remember he's a writer and director,
yes.
about technical questions, please put them in the comments. We would love to have you guys submit them. And then if there's stuff you want us to talk about the next time that he's here, please also put those in the comments because he's a wealth of information about films and directing. So it would be great to have
the technical sort of lesson that you gave us with the film on center.
But I think one of the things I want to say one thing. One of the things I think that was the biggest marketing coup was Ryan Coogler doing a 10-minute video online about why you should see this film in IMAX.
Yeah. I didn't see it, but I heard about it.
Okay, you heard
People watched that and had an understanding. And I was like, oh,
Good for
finally, somebody.
Good for him.
Somebody.
like focusing on the technical.
Focusing, like, this is Super 8 film.
Yes.
This is
I love
16
that.
millimeter film.
Yeah, he broke it down.
This is 35 millimeter.
Because people don't know.
This is
I love
70
that you
millimeter.
shared that with us.
Yeah.
Because
Yes. Look at that. Watch that.
So go and check that out. Where they can just find it at his website, I'm
if
sure,
you,
right?
If you just
Google Ryan Coogler.
IMAX, Ryan Coogler, YouTube, boom, it'll come up.
All right.
You know?
Excellent.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you for tuning into the Quest Culture podcast. It's always fun hanging out here with you guys. And we will talk to you all really, really soon. Take care.